Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
Can you think of any business where the schedule is as important as it is in a dental practice? For that matter, outside of the healthcare space, can you think of any other business that runs or lives by 10 or 15-minute increments? You probably can't. And the schedule is sort of the touchstone or the architecture for the entire day, week, or month. It determines how much you're going to produce, how much you're going to collect, how your day is going to run, what the division of labor is going to be, who's going to be where, when. So when you end up with cancellations, especially last-minute cancellations or full-on no-shows on a schedule, it can wreck a day, week, or a month. And the degree of wreckage obviously depends on how many cancellations and no-shows you have. It could be a minor ding or dent, a fender bender, or it could be completely totaled. So how do you proof yourself against cancellations and no-shows? What steps should you be taking to proof your office from having these, especially whether you're having problems or not? What steps should always be in place to make sure that you eliminate these as much as possible? And if you do end up with a last-minute cancellation or a no-show, what steps should you be taking to fill these slots, whether it's on the doctor or the hygienist schedule? Well, that's what we want to talk about in this week's episode. My name is Jeff Blumberg, and I'm your host, and I'm joined this week, as I have been many times, by Sabri Blumberg, the Deputy Chief Operating Officer here at MGE. Sabri, I think we have you all set up over there.
I am. Hi, Jeff.
And hello. And if you haven't heard Sabri before, you probably have if you've been listening to the podcast for a while. Sabri is in charge of all of the technical delivery here at MGE. She's worked with thousands of clients. She's sort of our senior person when it comes to client guidance as far as what they should or should not be doing to achieve practice growth, efficiency, and whatnot. So I thought it'd be a good idea if we're going over this. How do you proof yourself against it as well as what do you do to fix it?
Yes.
To just talk to Sabri. It would make the most sense because you've had the most experience in dealing with this with our clients.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, you have. I mean,
Okay.
You can't deny it, right? Okay, so let's just roll right into this, I think, right?
Okay.
So let's start with proofing yourself against it. So let's say I come to you and I'm a client. I'm having a cancellation or no-show problem. And obviously, it might be on the doctor's schedule, might be on the hygiene schedule, or might be both,
Yes.
right? So let's talk about these proofing steps first if we could. I'm assuming some are universal,
Yes.
like for both schedules.
Yes.
And some are specific to the doctor or the hygienist schedule because the hygienist schedule is not a huge variance of procedures, whereas the doctor's schedule can be all over the place with what the doctor's seeing.
Correct.
So what would be these steps? So I come to you, I'm having a cancellation no-show problems, let's say in both places.
Okay.
What would you do?
Well, the first thing I would realize, and it's interesting when I talk to clients about cancellation, with cancellation issues, they usually have the idea that it's the patients.
Okay, like the patients are, just bad patients or
Patients just don't show up, or
Okay.
this happens, or maybe people have low dental IQ, or, dental appointments are not as important to them. And
so like something they can't do anything about.
well, yeah, the first, and then you get unusual solutions. Like I saw somebody a few weeks ago that is double booking hygiene, like 2 patients in 1 slot because they have such a bad cancellation problem, and the client thought that that's just the way you should handle patients because patients don't keep their hygiene appointments.
Were they double booking the entire hygiene schedule?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a hygienist, 8 patients a day. So they're booking 16 patients for this hygienist.
That's
What if
correct.
2 people show up at the same time?
Well, then they just deal with it. Or they adjust the schedule because there's cancellations later, so it will all kind of even itself out.
I mean, that sounds like something that might work in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
As far as from a production perspective, the hygienist
Sure.
will always be busy. But I would imagine from a goodwill and a PR perspective for the patients, it's going to start to eventually piss people off because they're having to wait.
Yeah, you're not only creating a scheduling problem with the patients where they're having to wait, you're also creating a problem that if you do have 2 people show up at the same time, the doctor does not have time to see that many hygiene patients.
I see.
You don't have time because the patient's not expecting there to be there that long.
I see.
So now the doctor no longer has the opportunity or limits their time with the patient, which limits the treatment that you get out of hygiene.
So they weren't being real scientific with this where they go, okay, I'm scheduling this one who doesn't need an exam up against one who does need an exam. So I could end up with 2 patients who show up at the same time who both need an exam.
Yeah, regardless of all the problems.
Sorry, I get really, I drill down down on this stuff pretty hard. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing to take away from something like that is that you're solving the wrong problem.
Okay.
Right? The correct problem, that's a front desk problem. That's an internal problem when you have something like that going on. I mean, very rarely is it a problem with the hygienist themselves, which I'm talking about the hygiene schedule now.
Sure.
Right? I mean, sometimes you have a hygienist that maybe shouldn't be doing hygiene. Right? Because they don't get along with people or, people, it happens.
Sure.
But that's rare
Okay.
that it's a problem with the hygienist. Ordinarily, or the hygienist isn't, quote unquote, educating the patient enough, or that's usually not the issue. Usually the issue is on the front desk.
I see.
Right? So it starts with sorting out a cancellation problem, starts with realizing that it's an internal problem. It's not a patient problem.
Okay.
The next thing to do is to realize that that problem belongs to somebody. It's not an everybody problem. Mm-hmm. Right? So the hygiene schedule and responsibility for making sure that the hygiene patients show up, right, should be one person on the front desk's responsibility. So you know who to talk to.
So now let me ask you a question about that, because this is a good point to ask it. So let's say, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you and I think have talked even about on this on the podcast before. Someone has to be responsible for anything, whether it's new patients or whatever. There has to be a person.
It's kind of your universal first thing, like who's in charge of this? Like who
Right.
am I correcting? Right.
Whereas in a lot of practices, you have 3 people at the front and everybody does a little bit of everything. So nobody's really responsible for anything.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So if I'm going to make somebody responsible for the hygiene schedule.
Yes.
Now I'm assuming in a smaller practice, they would also be responsible for the doctor's schedule too.
Absolutely. But the way that the doctor no-shows is usually a little bit of a different issue
Okay.
than hygiene no-shows.
So
that's why I'm breaking them apart.
Okay, so not to get too all over the place, and maybe
Yeah.
I'm leading us in the wrong direction here,
Yes.
but I have to ask. So
Yes.
just because you can throw it out there. So if we go, okay, the hygiene schedule no-shows are usually a front desk problem.
Yes.
Okay, so whoever's handling the schedule for the hygiene schedule, and there has to be somebody who's responsible.
Correct.
So now doctor no-shows or doctor cancellations, what are the usual culprits there?
Usually that's a sales problem.
Okay,
So the patient has agreed, quote unquote, to do the treatment, but the finances have not been fully addressed, or maybe the patient hasn't paid yet.
I see.
And now when the patient's showing up to do that appointment, the patient has to figure out, I'm going to have to pay this money. So you're running into a sales problem. You want the finances of the treatment that you're scheduling for fully figured out and ideally paid before the patient is scheduled.
Ideally prepaid if possible.
That's correct.
All right, so then on doctor no-shows, let's say it's a larger procedure, 3 onlays and 2 crowns.
Yes.
Okay, so 5 units, a crown, well, whatever, crowns and onlays. So that's probably a, $7,500, $8,000 treatment plan,
Yes.
maybe a little bit less. So in that case, doctors presented the treatment with the treatment coordinator. Financial arrangements are made, possibly even prepaid for as part of the process before we even get the patient scheduled.
Correct.
We don't get paid. Let's say we go,
Yes.
it's fine. We'll have you pay the day you come in. So then I wake up that morning. I'm that patient.
Yes.
And I go, oh wow, I'm going to have to bring $6,000 to this office today because my insurance is only paying $1,500.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'll call. I don't feel well.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's not really a front desk problem. That's a sales problem.
That's right. That's what I'm
it.
saying. The doctors handle. I mean, if somebody's prepaid for all their services, you have a heck of a lot better chance of that patient showing up.
Sure.
Than if they're not prepaid. Because,
Sure.
Sometimes things change in life. Like the person may be completely excited and committed to do their treatment while they are there. They go home and, their water heater breaks and now they have to get a new water heater. And now
Or
they
their
go,
spouse
okay,
talks them out of it.
right. And now they go, okay, well, I'll put this off. If they're already prepaid and committed, they will usually find another solution for the problems of life.
Got it. Okay, so most of the time, no-shows and cancellations on doctor's schedule is a sales issue.
Yes.
I'm sure there could be a screw-up at front that causes it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. But on hygiene, it's a scheduling front desk issue.
Correct.
So now, and again, if we have a smaller practice,
Mm-hmm.
it's most likely the same person responsible for the doctor and the hygiene schedule.
Correct.
Okay, so you say that's the first thing. We need
Yes.
someone responsible.
Yes.
Okay, so then what would be our next thing we would do to proof against this? Sorry to direct you, not misdirect. Sorry to direct us in that other direction. I just wanted to throw it out
No,
there.
it's totally
Yeah.
fine. It's totally fine. Now, it's okay. So we have somebody in charge. The next thing is just that person needs to be trained
Okay.
on how to handle it. And that's really 2 different areas. The first thing is the person needs to know how to schedule hygiene patients. And the biggest problem I find with scheduling hygiene patients is that we schedule the patient for a day, right? Like, and then we will quote unquote call to confirm it.
Oh, so like I've scheduled you 6 months from now.
But don't worry about it. I'll call you to confirm that appointment. So in the patient's mind, that appointment isn't confirmed.
I see.
Right?
I see.
They just,
Okay.
that's just, I don't know what they think, right? So, and that's just a matter of making sure that the patient understands, no, this is their appointment. I will call you to remind you, but I expect you to be there.
So it's not a confirmation thing. It's a reminder thing.
It's a courtesy.
Got it.
Right. But put it in your phone, calendar, or whatever, however you keep track of this kind of stuff, and I expect you to be here at that time because this appointment is important.
I could see that too. If you're telling me as the patient,
Yes.
hey, this is your appointment on August 6th at 2 p.m.
Yes.
That's your appointment. We'll give you a reminder text the month before, or you'll get a postcard the month before, blah, 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 just to remind you.
Yeah,
I own that appointment.
that's right.
As opposed to, well, we're scheduling you for this time, that will be good, and we'll call you to confirm it up. Then it's
Yes.
not really that real. There's no responsibility on my end then. It's really all yours.
That's exactly
And
right.
I can throw that right back at you if I miss it. Well, you told me it wasn't, you were going to call to confirm, and I never
That's right.
talked to you because I never took your call. or
That's
something.
exactly right. And especially in a private practice, I usually let the patient know, like, okay, so I'm reserving this time for you, right? If anything changes, please give us plenty of notice. But as of right now, this is your appointment.
Yeah, because if you call me or you send the reminder to me a month before and I want to change it, it's really not that big of a deal.
No.
There's plenty of time to fix that.
That's exactly right. But
Okay.
you put some responsibility on the patient.
Got it.
So first of all, train your front desk, whoever's handling this, so to make sure that the appointments are scheduled correctly. And the second thing is when that confirmation phone call is made, make sure that the person knows how to confirm patients. Like what is confirmed, right? Is leaving a message confirmed? Is sending a text confirmed?
I would consider that you actually have to speak to the individual or the individual's parent or responsible party.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would probably, if somebody tried to confirm an appointment for me and they talked to you, I think that would probably be okay.
Yes.
We're married, obviously, but
Yeah.
for those of you that don't know, we have the same last name.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But even in that case, you're taking a risk. Like, hey, I'm just leaving a message. Can you tell your wife that, or remind your wife she has an appointment tomorrow?
But that's not confirmed.
That's not confirmed.
Right. That would be, let me check real quick. Yeah, he can come.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that kind of leads to the next point, and that is you need to give yourself enough time to confirm these appointments. You can't start the day before or the
Right.
evening of,
So
right?
a few days before is ideal for confirmation.
Absolutely. You need to speak to every single patient, even if it's a text back and forth. That's fine too.
Yeah, because a lot of that's done now. I know I do that when I'm
Me too.
confirming healthcare appointments. I just, type C for confirm or Y to confirm. I do it that way or I do it via email.
That's right. And even with those C's and Y's, those automatic confirms, right? It's a heck of a lot easier to blow off an appointment where you just typed a C and a Y versus you spoke to somebody in that office, a real person, either via the phone or text message, like you were talking to me.
Well,
and you told me you were going to come.
Let's look at that for a second.
Yeah.
So let's say, and again, I'm not trying to devalue a hygiene appointment,
Yeah.
but now, and you may disagree with me on this one, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Unless I had a real problem.
Right.
Like, let's say I had 4 cancellations a day out of a eight patient hygiene schedule.
Yeah.
I'd probably initially want to talk to everybody.
That's right.
Right. But let's say I was getting the occasional cancellation. It was rolling pretty good. I would think a Y or a C from a text or an email, I'd be comfortable with that. Versus if, let's say it's a large, there's that on-land crown procedure I discussed earlier. If that's on the doctor's schedule, I might want to talk to the person just to make sure.
That's
because
right.
it's such a humongous procedure on the doctor's schedule, and losing that versus losing one cleaning that day has a lot more effect on the practice.
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what you're saying, and
Yeah.
I do agree with that. The only thing I'm saying is if you're going to use an automatic text service to do this for you, make sure you keep an eye on it. And if that isn't working, like step back to an actual person.
No, that makes sense.
Doing it.
I mean, I even wonder, though, if I were in that situation, if I still would do that with the larger procedures. Still want to talk to them.
Yeah, but I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, or text them.
Yeah.
Personal. I see what you're saying versus an automated text.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
good
I
point.
agree with you.
All right.
The other thing is this person who's doing this confirmation needs to know how to handle people that are trying to cancel.
Yeah, good point.
It shouldn't just be I'm like
They have to be able to do more than say okay.
right,
Sorry.
right. They have to be able to talk to people. They have to, like, the person says, well, it's really busy right now. I don't think I can come. It's like, oh, okay, well, we have that time reserved for you. Is there any way we can fit it in? What can I do to help you with that? Right. And especially with same day cancellations. Right, that patient has to know how to handle same-day cancellations. They have to be able to say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't accept same-day cancellations unless there's an emergency. What is happening that you feel the need to cancel this appointment?
So you're having them sort of ratchet up the pushback a little bit without getting impolite, of course.
No.
But you're ratcheting up so I call up because I'm the kind of guy that figures I can blow off an appointment when I can.
Right.
I call up, I figure, no problem. I'll call, tell you I'm busy.
Yes.
Right. I'm on the golf course or something. Yeah, but I don't play golf.
Right.
Anyway, so I call you. I go, hey, I'm going to cancel. Yeah, listen, I'm really busy today, Sabri. I'm sorry I can't make it.
Yeah, I totally understand that, right? We do have this time reserved for you at this point, right? Only for you.
Okay.
Is there something happening, or is there any way we can figure out how to make this work? Because that time's reserved for you today.
Yeah, I'm just really busy. I mean, I don't know.
Is there any way you can do it?
See, you're not just giving up so easily.
No.
Yeah.
I'm giving the problem back to the patient.
So then I might go, well, you know what? Okay, what time? It's 3:00, and it's only an hour, right?
It's only an hour. We'll have you in and out,
Fine.
and we won't make
All
you
right,
wait.
I'll show up.
Awesome. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so it's not so easy to where I can just blow you off.
No, because you let that patient blow you off, right? And it's easy. You say, okay, well, let me reschedule you for your next appointment, right? And then now you're going to spend half an hour on the phone fixing that opening.
Right.
Right? It would have been much easier spending the extra 3 minutes on the phone to see if there was any way that patient could keep their appointment today. And usually if the patient understands that they are creating a negative effect on the office, right? Sometimes it's just not understanding that this is a problem.
Right.
Right? So
Because
if
they
you
think you're double booking hygiene. No,
yeah,
I'm kidding.
It's not a big deal. I'll just
Right.
come next time. You guys have plenty of patients. If you know,
Right.
no, this is a private office. We do not double book. Right? This time is reserved exclusively for you at this point.
Right.
Right? Then they start understanding, right, this is not a good thing. And sometimes they change their mind. Usually they actually do because people are usually nice.
Right.
And don't want to do that.
So we're ratcheting up the pushback in a polite, nice way.
Right.
The closer we are to the appointment time. Because obviously if I'm making that call to you a month ahead,
Oh, then I
you don't care. You're
No.
okay, yeah, let's get your next date, Jeff. Okay,
Right.
yeah, no problem. Do it
Right.
the next day.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's very circumstantial.
Sure.
Right. So the first thing is someone in charge. The second thing is make sure that that person is trained on how to schedule and how to confirm. Right. And then the third thing is have a good confirmation procedure or protocol. Right. Whatever that may be. Some people still do postcards. Some people just do text. Sometimes it's 2 weeks before or a week before and then the day before. Definitely do the day before.
Right.
Right.
Which, by the way, I think we lay that out in, actually, no, I don't think I know, in the scheduler course,
Yeah.
schedule coordinator course on DDS Success, our online platform.
Yeah.
We actually give an example of a full confirmation system for both the doc and the hygiene schedule and when to book over somebody.
That's right.
Yeah, we have that all in there if they want to have something to base it off of.
That's
I'll put
absolutely
a
right.
link on the episode website. That's my selfless plug. Shameless, not selfless. It was very shameless. Shameless plug for the episode. But go ahead. Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah.
But whatever, and that's the one we suggest that we find works best. If you have a different one that works, by all means, stick with it. But the thing that whatever procedure or protocol you make for confirmation of the hygiene schedule, it has to be in writing. It has to be followed, and it has to give you enough time to fix openings.
Makes
Right.
sense.
So you can't start confirming the day before or sometimes even 2 days before as your first confirmation. It doesn't give you enough time to fill the schedule.
Right. And if I have that procedure, that's the thing I like. If I have enough, I hate to use the word vectors, but,
Yes.
directions, whether it's text and email and a call, and it's all different ways of confirming. And I'm deploying these at various points leading up to the appointment.
Yes.
I'll probably catch 60 to 80% of the folks with those
Yes.
before I have to hit phone calls,
That's right.
which the phone calls are getting when we're getting close.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then for new patients on the schedule, if it's on the hygiene schedule, I like to have the hygienist call the new patients at the usually at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day or over lunch or whatever. I give her some time to call the new patients, usually not more than 2 or 3 phone calls, and just introduce herself to the patient, let her know she's looking forward or he's looking forward to meeting the patient tomorrow, and ask if there's anything they can do so that they're better prepared for them so they have a good visit.
That's interesting.
Right? So they have that personal connection with the office, and the hygienist is a real person to them.
So assuming they're seeing new patients on the hygiene schedule for the cleaning initial or whatever, because sometimes people do it on the doctor's schedule,
Sure.
right? Sure. But so I like that. So the day before, so let's say it's the end of the day, I have a patient tomorrow at 11.
Yeah.
I'm the hygienist. I'm doing a final confirmation call.
Yeah.
Would I do that even if the patient was confirmed?
You can absolutely do it if the patient is confirmed. Sometimes that is the confirmation.
Okay.
Yeah, then it doesn't
So
require.
I call up. I'm Jeff. I'm the hygienist from Dr. So-and-so's practice. I'll be meeting you tomorrow when you come in to get your teeth cleaned. Is there anything that you want me to be aware of? Anything you
Yes.
want to discuss with the doctor while you're here?
That's right. I'm really looking forward to meeting you
Forward to meeting-
tomorrow.
I forgot that part.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, well, it doesn't matter.
Well, and it's interesting because we had a client bring this up once at one of our owners' conferences. I don't know if you remember this. He was having a problem with new patient no-shows.
Yes.
He didn't see them on the hygiene schedule, though. He saw them personally.
Okay.
These are just, I want to get an exam. I'm new to the area. One of those
Fine,
types.
then
Initial.
Take 15 minutes and call your new patients on your
He
schedule.
called them he started calling them the night before.
Yeah.
And he eliminated his cancel. Because in a lot of cases, the patient got the call, wow, this is Dr. So-and-so. I can't
Yes.
believe you're calling me.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So the provider that's going to be seeing the patient, actually calling the patient, which is 10 minutes out of your life,
Right.
has a tremendous impact
That makes
on
sense.
the patient. Last thing is if there is a larger procedure in hygiene, you're doing like something that the patient's going to have to pay for, night guards, scalings, things like that. Make sure that patient is prepaid,
It's just like you would do on the doc schedule.
just like you would do on the
So if
doc
I'm doing
schedule.
an arch of scaling and root planing, and it's going to cost whatever $800 or $900, let's say I'm not insured, that's already been taken care of before I left.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And that's usually your little rules for handling a hygiene schedule.
So this is sort of how do we cut off the bleeding, so to speak, so that this stops going into the future.
Right.
And then I know we'll get into in the second half of this episode, we'll get into, okay, now I have a last minute cancellation or no show. What do I do now? I know that's the
Right.
next part.
Yes.
But are there any different things? Because we've talked about it being a sales thing on the doctor's schedule. So obviously get them prepaid, get them sold before they come in. Are there any other things you'd recommend to reduce cancellations or no-shows on the doctor's schedule?
No, those are the main things. Prepay, right? And good confirmation. Usually the doctor's schedule is really simple if you have the patient's prepay.
Right.
Right. And just tell the patient now, the people do this different ways. Some people say, in order to schedule an appointment here, you have to be prepaid, right? In order to reserve the time for you. That's one way to do it. You can also just say, listen, usually the hardest thing about dentistry, or one of the hardest thing about getting your dental work done is, the money is an unpleasant part of it. So we usually just like to get that out of the way so we can concentrate on your treatment. So let's get the finances taken care of today. Right. So that's a way to do it. You have to find your own words.
Maybe
You have to
offering
figure
a
out-
5% prepaid discount.
You can absolutely do that. Whatever makes you comfortable. But yeah, that all the clients that I work with personally, that's usually one of the first things that we do is we get the dentistry that the patient needs prepaid.
Interesting.
Yeah, they need to pay anyway, so you might as well get it over with.
Right. And the one thing to think about, and it's funny because I've had patients or had clients tell me patients have asked them this, is because, patients are becoming more savvy.
Yeah.
There's pluses and minuses to the internet, obviously. So people are becoming more savvy. So a lot of patients know if they get no interest financing through whether it's, Cherry Care Credit, Sunbit, something, they know you're taking a hit.
That's right.
They know.
Yeah.
That might be a 10 to 15% hit depending
Yeah.
on the company that you're working with.
Yeah.
Right. So they've had some patients come to them and say, hey, why don't we do this? Even though these clients had a prepaid discount structure,
Yeah.
say, look, I know I could do a payment plan through you and it would cost you 10%.
Yeah.
What about you giving me 5% off if I pay you in advance?
Yeah.
And it's, of course, the doctor already has a 5% prepay. So,
That's right.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Yeah, no, that works great.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That works great. And if you don't want to use finance company, you can just say that. If you finance, I can give you, you can either finance it, but if you pay cash, right, the cost of the financing I will give to you.
Right.
Right. But make sure then that you're not so heavily into PPOs and your PPO, if you are, that your PPO reimbursement isn't so bad that you're giving away all the profit. So.
And one thing I will say, because I know I've seen this come up before, not so much in healthcare, but in other businesses, I would not charge the patient more for using a credit card.
I wouldn't.
I know it's a 3% hit. I think in most merchant agreements, you're actually not allowed to.
Okay.
I'm not an attorney. Don't take it from me, but I know because the idea, obviously, Visa, Amex, MasterCard, these guys want you to use the credit card. Don't want to discourage the use. So I've seen it where some people will go, look, if you give me a check, it's this much. If you give me a Visa, MasterCard, it's 3% more. The amount is so negligible versus a 10% hit with the finance company.
Yeah.
I just let them, if they're going to prepay, you let them use a credit card.
Yeah. And the other thing I would look at is, and not to get too off track, but if you're that tight financially, right, make your fees match.
Yeah.
Right. Or raise your fees to what they should be. And if you can't because you're stuck in insurances, start figuring out how to get out. Lots of people do, and it's totally fine.
Right. And it's not that difficult.
No, it's not.
No.
It's
As a matter of
really
fact, not to have I'll do another shameless plug. We do a free fees and plans analysis where we will evaluate your fees as well as how to get out of plans if you're in them. I'll put a link to that on the episode webpage. It's an appointment where you meet with one of our practice management specialists. It's free and they can give you some advice on how to do that.
Yeah.
All right. So that's how I proof the practice against having potential problems with cancellations and no-shows.
That's right.
So now we got to get into, I have a cancellation and no-show. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I know you have a whole thing on this that you did with DDS Success. You were mentioning to me you have there's a different way we're going to do it for the doctor's schedule handling. Like we have that last minute cancellation or no show. Different way you're going to handle on the hygiene schedule and the doctor's schedule.
Yes.
And we have handouts on these, which, by the way, we're going to make available on the episode webpage. We have 9 steps to fill a last-minute opening on the hygiene schedule and cancellations on the doctor's schedule, like a whole procedure. I think it's like 5 steps or something like this. And I know you put this together for our platform, but do you want to cover some of the bigger, like more key points here? Because I know it's different for each, right?
Right.
Okay.
So the hygiene schedule, you're just trying to fill the opening.
Sure.
Right. So there's different ways to do that. And most of everybody is familiar with these. You would obviously take a look if you have anybody on the doctor's schedule that you can put into hygiene.
Okay. So I have a patient on the schedule that needs a cleaning that's coming in. Let's say my opening's at 11.
Right.
And I have a patient coming in at 10.
Right.
Who needs they're almost due for a cleaning, right? Maybe they don't have insurance, in which case I can just bop them over there. The whole 6-month thing isn't going to be a huge problem.
Right.
They can just run over. So that's one option.
Right. So you always try to see, okay, what do I have right here? So the other thing you can do is when you're confirming your patients, if you have time, right, you can ask like, hey, do you have anybody else in your household that needs a cleaning?
But now this is assuming I have an opening on tomorrow's schedule.
Correct.
But if I have one today, obviously I don't have that option.
You don't have that option if you have that. But even if it's the same day, I mean, I would check the patient that you're seeing right before or right after and take a look at, is this person, do we have any of the other family members in the practice?
Okay.
And call them and see, hey, do you want to bring your husband or something like that for
So you're getting a
opening?
cleaning and they have an opening an hour from now. They ask, well, could Jeff come in? He's due.
Right.
Let me call him.
Yeah, why not? I'm going to see what I have, what I can do with it. The other thing that you can do is you take a look, do you have somebody on the hygiene schedule that's getting something done, like maybe a scaling or something like that, and they still need a prophy afterwards, or can I fill it? Can I expand the procedures I already have on the hygiene schedule?
Maybe they need another quad of scaling and route planning.
Exactly.
I guess the trick, and this is a point that always gets brought up, is if they are an insurance patient, it has to be like 6 months to the day or something like this.
Yeah.
If it wouldn't be 6 months to the day, you got to be careful with that.
Right. And these are obviously things to check, especially if you go into the more aggressive handlings, like do I have somebody next week in the same time slot that I can move to this week in this time slot? The other thing is, I mean, on DDS Success, we call it the executive list. The executive list is for people that, frequently miss their appointments. Right. The executive list is for people that frequently miss their appointments due to work reasons, right?
Or they're just bad with schedules.
We
The
call it the
executive list.
executive list.
What if they're
okay?
like not an executive?
I don't care.
They're an artist. You're on the executive list. Why are you putting me on there? Because you stink at keeping appointments.
Correct. I
Yeah.
mean, you got to call it something that you can live with,
Sure.
right? So just call it the executive list. These are people that you've told, like, listen, because you have trouble with your schedule, I'm just going to call you when we have an opening
Sure.
and see if you can make it, right? Last minute. So it's good to keep that list so that you can fill openings with that. And then if you really can't fill it with any of that, now you get into your more, your normal handlings, like just get on the phone and call your overdue list and see if you can fill it.
Right.
Or call
Or maybe
your fail
pull
list.
someone up from later in the day earlier and stuff like that.
The more time you give yourself, the better.
Right.
So if it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to see if and it's late at night, I'm going to see if I can move a patient up so that maybe the opening is now at 4 instead of at 9, and it gives me more opportunity to fill it.
Okay. All right. So that's with hygiene. Now, what are the difference between that? Like, what would you do on the doctor's schedule? Let's say the doctor lost a large procedure in the morning.
Well, the
And
doctor's
you've got
just
2 hours to fill it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So with the doctor's schedule, I'm always going to try to fill it. I'd rather fill it with an opportunity than with an unproductive procedure. And what I mean with an opportunity is somebody that could be production, or maybe somebody that the doctor needs to spend some time with to explain a treatment plan, and then maybe that patient will get on board and commit to their treatment plan.
All right. So if we've, sorry, I'm
No,
gonna
it's
cut you
fine.
off, but let's say we've exhausted all of our normal options. We've looked at who's in hygiene, who we could throw into the doctor's chair.
Yes.
Right? That maybe needs a procedure. The doctor could talk to him, see if we can get him to do the procedure and
Sure.
follow through. And maybe there's a couple new patients coming in, and maybe there's some opportunity there, like you're saying, right?
That's right.
But I guess usually the first effort is somebody usually tries to pull from tomorrow or the next day or whatever with a productive procedure. But
Yeah.
let's say we've come up goose eggs on those.
Yes.
So now you're saying we don't have that productive procedure. It ain't there.
Right.
We called tomorrow. We called the day after. We've called Monday's patients who are on the schedule to see if we can move them to
We've done
today.
all the usual stuff that anybody's going to do.
Nobody can do it. So you're saying instead of going, okay, we're going to, deliver these crowns that we're supposed to deliver tomorrow, let's go for a potential opportunity for production instead.
Correct. I'd rather the doctor spends their time selling done and have the opportunity to do the production the same day, or even if they don't have the opportunity to do it the same day, at least they were able to sell a case that would be future production.
Right.
Right. And sometimes that's just as valuable as production time.
So now
Right.
where would we be looking for? This is where we're looking in hygiene, new patients and things like
I'm looking
this.
for hygiene. I'm looking at new patients. I'm looking at treatment plans that the doctor has presented in the past that I feel should have gone, or the doctor feels like they should have committed, but they didn't. I can call those patients back in.
But give me an example of that, because this is something these guys can then do when they're listening to it. So I've called tomorrow's patients to, let's say I have an 10:30 opening
Yeah.
in primary time on the doctor's schedule. It
Yes.
was $3,000 of the doctor's production today.
Yes.
So we looked in hygiene to see who has outstanding treatment that maybe we could convert and move over.
Yes.
Okay, and there's nobody that's really looking good.
Right.
And we don't have any new patients this morning.
Okay.
So we don't really have a ton of opportunities, and we can't fill it with production. So you're saying, let's say, are we looking for patients that are like super overdue, or maybe a treatment plan he presented or she presented 3 months ago or 4 months ago that maybe the patient said they had to wait for some reason?
Yeah, I'm going to call these people back in because those are consultation appointments.
Okay.
So I can consultation appointment is a nice way of saying sales appointment. Just like executive list is a nice way of saying these are your patients that don't show up list.
Right.
Right. So your consultation appointments are it wouldn't be people that are overdue for hygiene because
Right, 'cause
those you
that'd
would
be
you just call those guys back in for hygiene and the doctor has the opportunity to talk to them again.
Right.
But let's say I saw somebody 3 months ago or the doctor saw somebody 3 months ago. Just go ahead and call them and say, hey, let's pretend it's you.
Yeah, let throw me through this. So let's
Okay.
say I
So-
saw your doctor 3 months ago. They presented whatever treatment I needed, some crowns or something.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, it didn't go.
Yeah.
Right. And I made my hygiene appointment.
Yeah.
Right. And that was that. So now you're going to call me because you have an 11 o'clock opening this morning or a
Right.
10:30 opening. What are you going to say?
I'm going to say, hi, Jeff. This is Sabri from ABC Dental. How are you doing today?
Oh, great.
Good. The doctor wanted me to reach out to you. Remember last time you were here, you needed those, the doctor talked to you about those crowns that you needed. Do you
Yeah,
remember
I told
that?
him I was going to have to think about it or wait a little bit.
Yeah, that's totally fine. We know that's a big decision.
Sure.
But those teeth are cracked or infected or whatever the case
Sure.
may be, right? And until you are comfortable making that decision, the doctor just wants to make sure everything's stable,
Okay.
right? And he has an opening today at 11 o'clock, and he was wondering if you can come in so he can just take a look at it.
Okay. Yeah,
Great.
sure.
Let's get you
How long is it
scheduled.
going to take?
It won't take long, right? Depending, hopefully everything's fine,
Like
right?
half hour?
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
It's complimentary.
So
Right.
no charge.
No charge.
Okay,
Just come
fine.
in and
Sure.
let him have a look at it.
All right. So that's how you'd at least, so we've come up, we've struck out with everything else we've tried.
That's right.
So that's where I'm now, this is my last shot to do something.
Correct. I'm not going to try, like in this particular scenario, if I call you with the outstanding treatment, every once in a while, you're going to tell me, yeah, I've been thinking about it and I know I need to proceed with that and let's just go ahead and schedule for it. But that's really very
Right.
rare.
Well, that's these like incomplete treatment lists. You call
Right.
me, yep, I'm still thinking about it. Thanks.
Yeah. And the thing that I always say is like if the doctor can't close it in person, the front desk is probably not going to close it over the phone.
You'd suspect.
Yeah, you would think.
yeah.
So, but at the very least, get that patient back in for a consultation just to make sure everything's stable, right? And of course, it's not stable because it wouldn't have been diagnosed if it was stable,
Right.
Right? That I mean, the teeth didn't uncrack themselves.
But it's an opportunity for the doctor to talk to the patient about it.
Yeah,
again.
and take a look at it and go, yeah, this really didn't get any better. As a matter of fact, looks like it's getting worse, right? I really wouldn't wait with this. And, maybe the patient
Maybe
will
I
commit.
say yes or maybe I say no, but at least there's a shot. There's hope.
You know what I find? If the patient comes in for the consultation appointment, they usually will just close.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they're at least reaching again. They're at least coming in. They're going through all the trouble to come in. They're obviously interested in it.
This tells you,
Yeah.
just if you're listening out there, this tells people listening, if you have because that's the incomplete treatment list.
That's right.
So you have the ones that are overdue for hygiene. And you and I could have sworn we talked about this on an episode at one point.
Probably.
Okay, so if they're overdue, and really the person who you'd want working on this consistently would probably be your treatment coordinator.
Absolutely.
So let's say I got my big old incomplete treatment list, my millions of dollars in incomplete treatment. If someone's overdue for treatment, I'm going to probably just call them in and get them in for a cleaning.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll discuss it when they're here.
Overdue for a cleaning, sorry.
Yeah.
It's going to come in for a cleaning and then they'll go into hygiene and the doctor will see them, the usual thing, right? If they're not overdue, they've been in for 3 months or whatever, I'm calling them back in for a quick look-see consultation. Doctor wants to make sure it's staying stable.
Yeah.
So that, and good point, if I'm going to go through all the trouble to come in, because I could also just said, nah, I'll just come in 3 months when I see you, in which case, fine, move on to the next person.
That's right.
But if I'm going to go through all that trouble, there's a good chance that, yeah, I'm interested enough to maybe move on it at this point.
That's right. And if the person just wants to, like now just do it, then later, then just make sure that the patient's scheduled for their recall.
Right.
Right. And that he knows, great, we'll check it at that time then.
Interesting. Okay. Well, this is good. This is good. So these are, we went over the way to proof the practice, which
Yes.
is great, which is obviously where we'd want to start. So I'm not dealing with this at the last minute.
Right.
But maybe I end up with a last minute cancellation for a valid reason. They had a family emergency.
It
and they get on an
happens.
airplane or, they're sick.
It
and they
happens.
Can't come
It's
in.
certainly going to happen.
Yeah. So then I've got at least some tools in my toolbox to do something about it. I think that's great.
That's right. But if it's happening an unusual amount of time, right, then you have a problem.
You ever
It's an internal problem. Just fix it. It's easy to fix.
So it's either a sales problem if it's a doctor's schedule or it's a front desk problem if it's on the hygiene
Yeah,
schedule.
the person isn't trained to do this job.
That makes sense.
Yeah, or
Okay,
it's not
good.
given to anybody.
So this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is awesome. And don't forget, we mentioned there's a link to the online platform DDS Success on the episode webpage. We also have a link to that fees and plans analysis. We also have a link to those 2 handouts that you were referencing that you wrote for DDS Success on how to fill the doctor's schedule and the hygiene schedule. If you want to check them out, you can get them on the episode webpage. Sabri, thank you so much for being here this week. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, this is awesome. And folks, that's all I have for you this week. If you want to find out more about MGE, you can find us online at mgeonline.com or call us at 800-640-1140. Have a great week, and we will see you at the next episode.